Okay, we're with Stephen Maguire today, Head of Performance and Coaching with Scottish Athletics. And we're chatting, Stephen, about the 4J Studios annual awards. Fantastic celebration on YouTube the other night. And we're talking, in fact, about the Performer of the Year award. And I think probably for the first time in history, it was a tie. The photo finish could not be determined. Laura Muir, Jemma Reekie and Jake Wightman named as our joint winners of the Performer of the Year title. You were involved in the process. Too hard to choose between them?
It's impossible to choose, when you've got three athletes of that caliber, and particularly the way that the season evolved for the three of them, where you could see that the three of them were in great shape, but you could also see that they were practicing, developing race tactics. You could see that they were performing for, obviously, to win races and stuff like that, but also the Olympics was in their mind. Jake, for example, in his 800s and stuff like that. Laura flitting between 8s and 15s, and Jemma doing the same. Couldn't split them, even when you went to the depth of looking at World Athletics performance scoring tables, for example, nothing between them. Extremely lucky, three tremendous athletes, and three brilliant people as well that are representing the sport magnificently.
Well, let's just take them one by one, and we'll do that in alphabetical order. So we start with Laura Muir, no stranger, of course, to a Scottish Athlete of the Year award, Performer of the Year this time. I think she had a couple of injury niggles through the winter last year, and that slightly affected the indoor season, and again, probably running into the outdoor season. But to take down a Kelly Holmes record at 1,000 metres, a good way to start, wasn't it?
Tremendous way to start, and Laura is now evolving and developing into one of those you've got to see athletes on the circuit, because you get 100% from her, no matter what kind of shape she's in, really. And if you looked at what she did in Doha last year, with the preparation wasn't in any ways perfect. She carried that into the winter, and breaking the 1,000 meters record. Her outdoor season, over 1,500 meters. Just the command that she brought to it. And I think the big stat, to have, 15 times under 4 minutes for 1,500 meters. That's just remarkable. And, Laura, she sounds as if she's been around a long time, and she sounds as if, she's very familiar, but she's now really going to come in to the critical part of her career. What she's done this year in setting it up for the Olympics, absolutely tremendous.
Well, it was coming to the 1,500 because she was absolutely peerless. I think it was 3 races and 3 wins in Stockholm, Berlin and Chorzów in Poland, and 2 at 3:57 and 1 at 3:58. So pretty consistent and very, very quick.
Superbly consistent, and it was the manner that she did it as well. And, Laura this year looked as if she didn't have a worry in the world. You looked at, again, she's evolved. Technically, there's been improvement. You look at how she's dominating the races. Yeah, she's always got that that presence about her and everything like that. But yeah, just to do what she's done, but also have the confidence and the ability to be able to stamp that presence on any field. It was brilliant to watch. I think everybody will agree with just watching Laura this year was superb.
Well, turning to Jemma then, and consistency probably is a really good phrase, is a really good word there as well. I had a look back earlier at her power of 10, and I think it's 9 wins from 15 races, nothing below 4th place, 7 sub-2 800-metre runs over the course of indoors and outdoors. Really tremendous level of performance that Jemma was able to hit, sort of almost throughout, starting early in the year as well.
Yeah, and if you think back to the Emirates that day that she absolutely smashed in 800 metres, and, pretty much the whole world took a step back and said, where has this come from, But again, people talk about a breakthrough year and everything like that. Yes, to a certain extent, but, double under 23 champion last year in Europe. She's got the pedigree, she's got the character to be able to do that. But I've got to admit, what she did this year, just watching that level as well, superb.
Well, that's an interesting point, because obviously I think Jemma's own confidence is rising year on year. But how much do you think other athletes are going to actually be worried or fearful about racing her?
If you look at the way she executes, and if you look, and I love that, and I think it's in relation to how Andy sort of works with Laura and Jemma and things like that. The presence that Jemma brings to the race, very unassuming, but you look at her and you see she's in the zone, she is focused. she's real deal. People know that she's real deal. And, you know, the athletics nerds, the statisticians, the coaches who analyze and work on techniques and things like that, and how to win races. And you know, the big question now is how to beat Jemma. And Jemma will evolve next year as well, you know. So this is still a very young athlete, still a maturing athlete, maturing in tactics, maturing in how she runs her races. So she's only going to get better. So yeah, she's in a very, very interesting upward spiral of performance at the moment.
Thank you. And turning to Jake then, I don't think he raced quite as much as Jemma and Laura in terms of the number of appearances, but the quality was there. And how impressed were you with the 3:29.47 in Monaco for a new Scottish record at 1500?
Do you know what? I think the whole world needed to be, anybody involved in our sport, whether you're a sprints coach or an endurance coach or whatever, you looked at Jake and the way that he raced in Monaco. I actually don't think that represents him fully, though. What I loved about Jake this year was going into 800s, rehearsing the 800s, rehearsing tactics. You know, the 1500 meters, he absolutely knows he's there. And he used the 800 meters, wasn't afraid to go up against people, wasn't afraid to show his humility when, you know, Daniel beat him, for example, at the British Championships. And Daniel's an absolute class act, and Jake came quite clearly after that and said, Daniel's going to beat a hell of a lot of people. But he's learning all the time, and he's learning. He's true world class. That run in Monaco showed that. Just the presence that he brings it, and I think, you know, I've used that now with all three athletes. But the lack of fear, you know, and the lack of not worrying what people think and what they do and things like that. If you look at Jake, for example, you know, in the past he's run 400s. We know he's run cross country. He was up in Scotland on the roads over the winter time as well. And you know, he's himself and Jeff, his dad, have they've grabbed this. They've absolutely grabbed it, and they're working in every aspect. They're not afraid to do it. They're not afraid to go into a race. And also, he's not afraid to recognise the likes of Lindsay, for example, and, you know, the present, what she has done for Scottish endurance and people like that. So, yeah, superb.
Well, you're actually right. He was up in Glasgow on a cold day in February and helped Edinburgh AC to victory in the Alan Scally Relays. I remember that day well. Just on Jake then, tracing it back a little bit maybe to Gold Coast when he got that bronze Commonwealth medal. Do you think that's been a trigger? Because we do seem to have seen him mature and grow in the last two and a bit years since then.
I think winning medals does that, yeah. And, you know, no matter what level, I think if you're able to go in and to be competitive, then absolutely, you know, absolutely. And you can see that level of maturity growing. I think with all three athletes, they know how to win medals. Now they've got to do it at the very, very top end, though. You know, they have to do it in the Olympic Games. The Olympic Games is absolutely cutthroat, tough, different. It's a different side of pressure. But the three of them have prepared so well, developed as people so well, and, you know, the calmness of their teams and the ability to be able to find solutions for, you know, to work out problems, whether it's in the race or coming back from injury or making sure you peak well. Yeah, I keep using the word superb a lot, but that's the only way you can describe it.
Well, you mentioned their teams there, so we come to the coaches, Andy Young for Jemma and Laura, and Jeff Wightman for Jake. They were our two contenders for Performance Coach of the Year, and it was Andy who was given the nod this time. Really, possibly just maybe one question, Stephen, but has that aspect of it been even harder this year when planning is such a factor at that level, and then planning has been so difficult? How impressed are you with the way Andy has coped?
That ability to be creative, that ability not to panic, the ability to be able to keep your eye on the goal this year. And I think both Jeff and Andy were very, very clear that their athletes were going to get seasons, and they were going to get competitive opportunities that were going to set them up for next year. Andy hasn't taken his eyes off the Olympic goal. Jeff hasn't taken his eyes off the Olympic goal. Their planning this year will reflect the ability to be able to keep calm, the ability to be able to plan, as you say, and be creative and read the athletes, but also trust the athletes. Trust that they were actually able to go out and deliver. And okay, people would say it's easier for endurance and everything like that, and it may be, but to the level that they competed at, to the ability to be able to beat people and bringing in that confidence without a doubt, that was superb coaching. Andy Young is one of the best coaches in the world in the endurance end of things, and you know, you can see that now what he's doing with the two girls.